Hi friends, welcome back to my tiny kitchen. I am Quintana, here with another recipe to share with you, and I am back to trying new recipes for the very first time in front of you. This next recipe I found on Bon Appetit's website, and it just sounded so delicious. It's a veggie recipe, and it is turmeric and coconut braised cabbage with chickpeas. Doesn't that sound just so lovely? So yeah, found it on Bon Appetit, couldn't wait to try it, so let's get started. All right, so now it's time for the parade of ingredients for our turmeric and coconut braised cabbage with chickpeas. And like I said, I found this recipe on Bon Appetit, and it is by Hetty McKinnon. So let's get started. Okay, so this recipe calls for 1/2 of a medium head of cabbage, or about 2 pounds. So I cut my cabbage in half, but then I weighed it and it was only about a pound. So I'm gonna use a whole head of cabbage, but whatever you use, just make sure it's about 2 pounds. Next, we have 2 medium shallots. You're gonna use about a 1-inch piece of ginger, and the nice thing about ginger is it says to skin, peel the skin off. But one thing I've learned in my cooking journey is that it's not really necessary to peel the skin, especially if you're going to cook it, because the skin is so fine and thin. During the cooking process, it doesn't even matter. The skin won't even be there. Next, the recipe calls for 2 garlic cloves. These look like little sperms. That's a different lesson altogether. But you know how I feel about garlic. So this does look like 2 garlic cloves. There are several little ones in these little bundles, so that's what I'm using. Next, the recipe calls for 1 serrano chili, or any green chili that you'd like to use. 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil that we're going to divide in the recipe. Then 1 teaspoon of Diamond Crystal kosher salt. If you don't have Diamond Crystal and you just have Morton kosher salt, for Morton, it just calls for 1/2 teaspoon, but I have Diamond Crystal, so I'm using 1 teaspoon. Next, we're going to use 1 can, 13.5 ounces of unsweetened coconut cream, and 1 13.5 ounce of can of chickpeas or garbanzo beans. The next ingredient is 1 teaspoon of brown mustard seeds. And in the interest of space and dishes, I'm just going to add these next 3 ingredients, the brown mustard seed, and we've added 1 teaspoon of ground cumin. And we're going to add these all together because they're going in the recipe together. And finally, to that, we are going to add a teaspoon of ground turmeric, one of my favorite spices because it's so beautiful and it's so aromatic and flavorful. So again, 1 teaspoon brown mustard seeds, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, and 1 teaspoon of ground turmeric. Finally, we have 1/2 cup of vegetable stock. I lied. That wasn't finally. Finally, we're also going to add some black pepper to taste, but I don't have that here right now. All right, so let's get started on the recipe. All right, so first things first, we are going to take if you have 1/2 of a head of cabbage, it's said to cut it into 4 quarters. But since mine is a little bit smaller than what the recipe calls for, I'm just gonna cut these 2 halves in half. So let's do that. And there we go. Next, we are going to peel and finely chop these 2 beautiful shallots. And voila, they are chopped. I might not be able to see because there are so many tears in my eyes, but we have our chopped shallots. Next, we're going to finely chop our ginger. There it is, beautiful chopped ginger. It smells so good. And finally, we have our lovely serrano, which the recipe calls to slice halfway down the middle, remove the white pith part and the seeds if you don't want the heat. Or if you do like heat, like I do, you can just slice it down the middle and then chop it. Chopped, serrano, chop, chop, serrano. All right, so we have our olive oil added. The skillet is heating up, heated over medium-high heat. And we are going to add our cabbage cut side down. Ooh, and you can already hear it sizzling. And we are going to now season it with the kosher salt. And we are going to cook this undisturbed for about 5 minutes. So let's do that. Okay, now that our cabbage is nice and charred, we're gonna take it and set it on a plate, set it aside. It's kind of falling apart, and I'm assuming that that's okay. I don't want it to fall apart too much, but I'm also not gonna force it. All right, so we have our cabbage on our plate, and we're gonna set it aside. Okay, now before the next step, the recipe says you want to make sure that you shake your can of coconut milk to make sure it's nice and mixed, and then open it, and then open and rinse your can of chickpeas so they can be ready. And now we're skillet over, I have it over a low flame because it was so hot, and we're going to add the remaining tablespoon of olive oil. And to that, we are going to add our shallots, ginger, pepper, and garlic, which I realized I totally forgot to show you the chopped garlic, but I promise it's in there. So now we're going to add that and let that cook for about 30 seconds to a minute. And now let's add our next ingredients. And I like to rinse out the can to make sure I get all the coconut milk I can. So I'm going to put the vegetable stock in the can, swirl it around, and then add it. So we added our coconut milk, our chickpeas, another teaspoon of diamond crystal kosher salt, and our vegetable stock. All right. And now that that's all combined, we're going to reintroduce our cabbage to the pot. And using a large spoon, we are going to baste our cabbage with the liquid. And now we're going to bring this to a boil and then take it down to a simmer and let it simmer covered for about 15 to 20 minutes. All right, so now I have a boiling pot of delicious cabbage, chickpeas, coconut milk, and all this goodness. So I'm going to take it down to a simmer, cover it for about 15 to 20 minutes, and I'll see you on the flip side. All right, and there we have, it smells so delicious, our braised cabbage with turmeric and coconut milk and chickpeas. And full disclosure, I failed you. I failed myself. I'm very sorry. I forgot to add the spices at the correct time. I think I was so concerned about not burning the garlic. I totally spaced it. So if you want to make this actually the proper way, you're going to add all of your spices right after the shallots, garlic, ginger, and serrano have cooked a little bit and until they're fragrant. And then you add the spices and you let them kind of cook. And you're supposed to let it cook until the mustard seeds start popping. And while I did add the spices too late, it will still be flavorful. But when you brown the spices, when you toast them, it just gives them a deeper, richer flavor. So I'm sorry, but I'm hoping it will still taste delicious. And we're going to find out with our taste test, which is coming up next. Woo, and there's our finished product. Isn't it so beautiful? And the recipe suggested I ground some fresh black pepper over it, and now we're gonna squeeze a little lime. And they also said you could use cilantro, but F that. F you, cilantro. And now it's time for our taste test with our favorite taste tester, Dan.
All right, here goes.
Yes.
That's yummy. It's like one of my favorite curry dishes mixed with like spices. It probably could have been toasted a little more, but what are you gonna do? But it's tasty. It's got a little tang to it. It's got nice burnt flavors and charred. Yes, like the caramelized cabbage, the yellow flavor. It's so good.
The yellow flavor.
So
that's
good.
turmeric.
Turmeric. See, I'm learning too.
Here it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Woo! Okay. So that was bound to happen, right? Making a mistake when you make a recipe for the first time. Again, I am so sorry that I failed you. I am so upset with myself, but it still tastes so yummy, and I can't wait to make it again the proper way. And I hope that you make it. If you do, let me know. Let me know how it turns out. If you have any recipes you'd like me to try, I'm so game to do that. It was really, really fun doing this. I can't wait to make it again. And until next week, don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends and spread the word, and I will see you next time.